With WAAAGH on the way, there's still some gets that are getting stuck in, lads. So today on WAAAGH Wednesday, we're going to come with the stats and the facts, the honorable mentions, and I do have notes from the top player coverage for the list that I picked / last weekend's live viewers picked. Because it did so well in the voting, I decided, hey, it looks like people still want to see this. So as for the honorable mentions, make sure you vote on that when we get to that part of the video. If you're a live viewer, if you're rewatching, leave a comment so I possibly actually go to that. Sorry guys for the brain fart. So let's move straight into the stats and the facts, because we're gonna get statistical, lads. So what's up, live chat? I'm showing, if you're on screen, we got Stat Super. I did filter so that it was just this last weekend, because I wanted to show the exceptional, outrageously unique times we're in at the end of the edition with the Kult of Speed coming out on top. Now, it was only 3 players playing it, but one of those players, 2 of those players, excuse me, did end up going 4-1. Then we go to War Horde, which is still the main meat of what the orcs are playing. As of this weekend, these were the only 4 detachments that were played, which was kind of surprising. You know, for a long time, we've been seeing a good representation of other detachments. This is looking like the smallest version of that. So maybe it was the WAAAGH that people are going to keep this momentum up and keep playing Cult of Speed. Is a one-off event. But what I will tell you is that I've been mentioning Cult of Speed, this very strong detachment. So really happy to see that, but it does take some deep collections. Then we have War Horde, 17 players, 43% win rate. Our overall win rate is a 42% win rate, right? So right there, about in line with what the actual average is, mainly because War Horde, of course, has most of the players. Still pulling off good results, don't get me wrong. The actual event win from this weekend came from a War Horde list. So that's that's awesome. And then we also have Dread Mom, which is getting some representation. 7 players, 30% win rate. To a degree, maybe it's gets having fun with Stompas on their last runs, trying to have the best combos out, maybe just trying different things. Not sure. But I love me some Dread Mom, and I think that's the one detachment that actually hurt most from next edition changes of stacking strats. Now, of course, War Horde's gonna hate that you can't fight on death and unbridled carnage, for example. But most of the Dread Mom combos that we talk about are like the same phase strat stacking. Strat stacking. Okay, English is hard. Then we go to the big hunt. So there's a couple gets trying to get it, literally a couple, just 2, 18% win rate. And I feel for them. There's always a lot to say actually about the hunt, to be honest. It's a bit controversial sometimes. But what I will say is we gave them love when Stephen Paprine was on. You can check that out for a little bit hints of how to play that. But even he recently threw in the towels, to be honest. So with that being said, let's move on to the honorable mentions and what's up to the live chat. Of course, a lot of talk about WAAAGH. Did the video about that. Gave all my thoughts on that. For the most part, I think that was hopefully like one of the most informative videos about WAAAGH so far, other than just fun conjecture. The comments did good. So if you haven't left a comment there, go back and do that, because the comments pointed out some good things I even missed. So then we have people talking about right now, like they're saying, WAAAGH is going to look strong with Cult of Speed, and Cult of Speed's already looking strong, right? So it's like, well, now what are you going to do? We've been talking about it. It's really about if you have the kind of niche collection, and WAAAGH does add another layer there. It just depends on his cost. If he costs too much, you take too much of the trash, volume of wounds that the detachment kind of needs to work. So he can't cost too much, but he really has really good synergy. So he's still going to work a lot of the time, especially for people that don't have like max Coptus, for example. But yeah, let's look at the honorable mentions, because my dumb self left this open. Of course, we have the paint competition. Enter on Facebook or on Discord. If it's Facebook, you can just DM me. If it's Discord, put it in the Discord. And yeah, of course, get it stuck in. Gorks and Morks, get ready for next edition. We move on to the honorable mention. So for the honorable mention, starting off hot with the big balls, we have Simon Leiden with a 5-0 War Horde GT win. Right off the bat, this kid just won the event. This was out in Belgium, so it wasn't GW terrain from what I can understand. I don't have the access to the player pack and everything like that. But that's as much from what I know about that one. Then we have up for the vote, like I said, and Rewatch Gang, of course. Then we have Stephen Paprine was just talking about that get. And he, like I said, kind of threw in the towel for the big hunt, moved over to the War Horde, which he hadn't played in a while. So that's how you know for some players they're getting real sick of the meta and just sticking to what's known to be good. And I don't blame him. War Horde's awesome. It's really cool to see really strong events. But like I always say, it's about the pilot of the Orcs list, especially in War Horde, where it's not about spamming the same thing over and over again necessarily. So it really is the pilots. Then we go to Derek from 40K Dirtbags. We see him on the channel. Of course, he has his channel. Check him out. I'm sure he's actually going to do a game by game breakdown or something of that list for how he did. But shout out to him and his Cult of Speed list. I do love the Gaz, right? People ask me, Gaz, Cult of Speed, does that make sense? Yes, it makes sense. It does. So shout out to Derek. And then we move on to Javier with another 4-1 Cult of Speed list in Barcelona. So it's even a different meta in that way. I love to see that. Very exciting to all of the results we've seen here. And of course, if you're either Rewatch Gang or live, make sure you get stuck in and let everybody know what you want to see. Because just because I didn't cover it this week doesn't mean I won't cover some of these next week, for example, right? But as for what I am going to cover is what I picked. And I picked it, of course, with a little bit of influence from last week's live chat and because the player himself reached out to me and actually gave me notes. Which means it's better for everybody involved. I got pictures, I got some notes. So that just makes it a bit more immersive and fun. And also, shout out to the bad dog. And we actually owe you double walls here. Whoa, whoa. Because last live chat, he also gifted some memberships and I closed it out right away like a dummy. So thank you very much to the bad dog keeping the channel alive. Because I got to keep the wall going and coming out with content for you guys, especially for the members. But thank you very much. Very generous of you, and it really means a lot for all the support. I'm doing the heavy lift. You're doing the heavy lifting for the new spawn gets. Then we have the Blood Moon's Murder Mouth. What's up, kid? Whoa, nice to see you. 5 Wall Tactic memberships. Always generous by you. Thank you for the love, and you've been here since the very beginning. You get. So people are very excited for the next edition, so I need to make this new content right behind the membership. And of course, you're a member, you can do call-ins on the call-in videos where you're on the lives. So be sure to try that, as that's also a new type of content we're coming out with. So thank you very much to you gets. Now, let's move on to my pick of the week. So my pick from last weekend was actually the week before last, excuse me, was our boy Stefan Dorfin Green Tide, and he's actually in the chat somewhere, or he was. To the Rewatch Gang, I'm looking for him. Here he is with his little wah all lower caps. So of course, like I always say, if you do well and you're a get, just reach out to me and we can get stuck in sometimes. So don't worry about that. Now, this was a fun, different twist on Green Tide. You always hear people talking about, just play Green Tide because the meta's, all best for elites and vehicles. And they're right, but it's still difficult because so many things are so killy at this point that just running the same old, I'm going to drown you in bodies doesn't necessarily work. So there's a bit more tech pieces on this list. Our boy did use some more cunning tactics, like actually utilizing strategic reserves for one of his mobs, for example. So this was a good one. We start off with Boss Nickrock, the most cunning get himself, followed by a mob of a Pain Boy and a War Boss together, one with the Pain Boy with the Bloodthirsty Belligerents, then a War Boss and on his own with the Ferocious Show Off, another War Boss, and then a Weird Boy. And so we had doubled up on the big 3-man mobs. On the characters, and then he would put one of those 20-man units into reserves. Then we have, so like I said, he has 2 20-man units of boys, which is not that I'm gonna say it's like low because it's still a lot of bodies, but it is not the peak when the peak is 120, right? So he has 3 20-man mobs, so it's still 60, and then he has 3 10-man units. So that's where the unique tech pieces come more in play here. Now, how he actually used this was cunning again. So a lot of the time I talk about leapfrogging units, getting out of a transport, one unit getting out, another unit getting in. There's a video I did on it as well. But in this case, how he was using it in this detachment was, as you can see, he has 2 trucks in this detachment. He would get the trucks right on the deployment line. If he had to, they could be inside behind a terrain piece. He would disembark the 3, then move the boys 6, and then go touch an objective, stage up in the mid table. So he used these 10-man units. Each one would start in a truck, and then they'd get off turn 1, start taking up space either for screening, skirmishes, putting on pressure because you're able to do sticky, really good cunning plays. And then he would fill up those trucks with 2 SWAT teams. So then he brought a 2 5-man units of flash kits and 2 tank busters with no character support. As soon as you start paying for the characters, it's a huge investment that generally kind of messes up the coherency of the green tide list, or it means that you only have 1 tank buster unit. So in this case, he went for 2, and then the flash kits for the SWAT team. So he has 2 separate SWAT teams here. Then he has the 10-man unit of commandos and 2 minimum size unit of Gretchen. So because you can see he's putting all these 10-man units forward of boys, and then the ones in reserve of the 20, and then the other 2 20s are staged up in the most ideal places. That means that the 2 Gretchen really are just for screening typically, unless it's very obviously cases for screening the backfield, excuse me, unless it's obvious cases where it can move forward or late game start scoring and taking up space. But in this kind of list, no way you can let someone get behind you. That's great, right? Just get all the Gretchen on the field, and you need CP in this detachment. So if you can get them on an objective to start helping you try to farm some, that's a big deal in Green Tide. And he, of course, he actually did take some war gear on the Mando. So he took a breacher ram, the power claw, 2 custom shooters, and a rocket. So nice to see that he brought some DACA. Now, as for how it kind of rolled out most of the time was he would have the boys, like I said, would be in trucks. They'd get out, go start staging up, trying to touch objectives to sticky them, etc. Throw in the shooting units. The shooting units would try to hunt down Toroxes, what we would consider light vehicles, for example, right? So anything that they can typically wound on 2s or 3s would be ideal. And then he said that they did their rhinos, for example. He said that they did their job as they were needed, and that he would still bring them, which is a lot of back and forth when I talk to Green Tide pilots and people that are making their list. Why am I going to pay for the points? If I do I bring a mech? Do I bring a character? What I will say is where we're at in the edition is that if you're playing on GW game terrain, especially, I highly invest in, paying for some DACA, even though it can be a little painful in our pockets sometimes and unreliable, because what it does is it influences the enemy's deployments, gains respect out of them, gives you options for your big push turn, and doesn't just leave you without tools, but it does take away from your mobs. So like I said, the trucks, breaking down the 10-man units, putting them in reserves is how he kind of helps stretch those boys to go further. So like I said, I do actually have notes from some of the notes from the games, and then I can go over some of the things he said from those games as well. I asked him some questions about it a little bit at the end as well, so of course, and he might be live here, so if you guys got questions, live chats, get stuck in there, lads. Let's move on to look at his matchup now. No, I have the wrong thing open. Here we go. No, what's up, you guys? Oh, what's up? What's going on, Wall Tactics in chat? Stoked for 11th edition. Whoa, that's what I'm talking about. The gentleman paints. I like that. The DJ gentleman's paint. What's up, you get? Yeah, make sure you get stuck in on painting too, everybody. Don't get stuck behind or drowned in your hobby lag. So here we are. And as you can see, he lost in the second round, but he still scored very highly. Of course, I did talk to him about it. He got 3rd place at this event overall. So let's go on to his first game. Now I do have a little couple pictures here as well. So this was against the Aeldari. Now the mission was layout 1, mission A. So a nice old taking hold. With a little bit of a different Eldar list, right? Because I'm zooming in so you guys can actually see. Because Aeldari, after they got nerfed, they're like, what can I not do if I can't just fire dragon you guys to win? It's like, all right, fine. So we have Eldar aspect host with Osterman, Agenza, and Slilax. We have 2 minimum size units of Dark Reapers, a Dire Avenger, a Falcon, double Fire Prisms. Oh, we've seen those a little bit. Howling Banshees, just a 5-man unit. Double Rangers, 2 units of Shining Spears, 3 units of swooping hawks, and then 2 5 units of spiders. So this guy was clearly going for an MSU run here. Let me see if I can pull up the notes so that you guys can actually see it too. But first, let me read what he said, and then I got the pictures. So in general, he said obviously it's an MSU Eldar list with no fire dragons. He put the Falcon and the fire prisms near his natural, and I pushed near my natural as the ways I stated. So I'll show you in the picture here. And he said he just wrapped a lot of units, tied them up. The enemy played too conservatively because the enemy knew he couldn't one-shot 20-man units of boys, right? That's the issue with this MSU version of Eldar. Now, do they have units that could devastate a unit of boys? You know, a 10-man unit of warp spiders, I think, in certain detachments might have a chance. Maybe some of their bikers, maybe if I'm not aware of it. But typically, they're not known for their one-shot giant activations. So you do play to your natural. You're going to straight take and hold. And then at some point, depending on when you go for, if you go first or second, you know when to do your push, smash them up. And so he went to WAAAGH turn 3. So when you can WAAAGH turn 3, there's a good chance, and you've been playing passively, good chance you can set up the win. Check out his bike, swooping hawks, and then use the flashing gits to pepper up some howling banshees. So let me show you some pictures real quick. I only moved it over so that you guys don't see all my personal stuff. No. I don't always have pictures, you know, so I wanted to show you guys. Let me see. Let me put this up now. So he was against his Eldar, as we talked about before, right? When you're looking, there's the truck, as we said. The dudes got out, moved 10, touched this objective, forced a response. There's a snicker out readying the jump. 20-man unit staging up here. His truck as well, poking here. The boys can jump out. I don't know if these are reserved or what he's going on here, or if, you know, we're getting ready to put him on the table, what exactly. But that's what he was talking about with the enemy's vehicles. Excuse me. This is more their response trying to flip his natural. As you can see, he's staging up and touching the middle. Probably they can't really one-shot that 20-man unit. If it's a 20-man, if it's a 10, he could still try to regrow them, which is what he was kind of baiting here. And again, as you can see, there were little pushes, and he still has a lot of the units back in this corner, right? So when is he really going to go to contend that middle? So as he said, once he WAAAGH turn 3, I'm assuming these bikes had come forward at some point, and then he just smashed them up. So yeah, great job by that. Now let me take this off so that I can move to his next game. So this next game is actually the one he lost, and I did ask him about it. And I did, of course, ask him a little bit extra notes about that. Boom, boom. What's up, you guys? So this was into the world he does. We have a Demon Prince of Corn with Unleashed Hell. There is some kind of good combo there. I can't remember exactly. Chat kind of remind me what that combo is. The Demon Princes are a little slept on in World Leaders. We have Karn the Betrayer, a Master of Executioners, and a Slaughterbound. A big old 10-man units of Zerker, 2 10-man units of Zerkers, and then 2 units of Rhinos. 1 Land Raider with its last cannons and such. A Chaos Spawn, 1 unit of 8-bound, and Exalted 8-bound. Double Baby Hellbrutes, double Jackals. So a little bit of different tools, such as like the Land Raiders and such. But the 10-man units are kind of coming more and more nowadays. They do punch up very, very well. Great volume. I think they up to strength 6. Each of those units has multiple of what their versions are of Power Fists. They're fast. If you get near their transports, they can disembark. But as for how it actually broke down, let me move over to that. He said it was game 2, mission M, layout 6, purge the foe. He said he went first and that he didn't actually get his pictures because his phone was dying. But he said the Gore Tracks World Eaters that came out and came out the Rhino. Okay. Okay, it's the Gore Track Onslaught. So the ones that actually get out of the transport. Okay, so they don't get the extra strength from all that buffs, but they get different buffs. He said so they get Lance when they get out of the transports. I did not remember all his rules. It's a different, more niche version of World Eaters. So he kept 1 War Boss, Brick, and Gratz in reserve. The 2 Hellbrutes hurt him really bad, he said. He said also the opponent normally plays Orcs, and he plays Orcs often, so he knows orcs to a certain degree. He said he also failed some charges. I said, okay, I understand. Let me see. He said he played a little bit too conservatively here. And once he failed the charges, he ended up misplaying about the Hellbrutes. So if you don't know, the Hellbrutes is when they charge, let's say they charge something. They charge something, they fight it. The unit then fights the Hellbrute back. Then the Hellbrute gets to activate again because it was just in a fight. And then it gets to hit that unit, right? So if that unit is then killed, that means it can then consolidate, touch another unit. That unit has to respawn and punch it. So then the Hellbrute gets to activate again and can cause a bad chain reaction. So, for example, this happened in the battle report I did with the Stampa and the Gorkanaut Morkanaut, where the enemy had killed some Grots, then killed some bikers in a very similar way. I'm assuming, like he was talking about. So you do have to be aware of that, even if you're playing it and you're aware it's when he has multiple and a lot of stuff's going on. It could happen. He said the tank busters and flash gates though took one out though. Like I said, a tank buster in this case is very useful because you're not trying to go in charge or get more fights necessarily with multiple of these dumb little hellbrutes. He said, and then the last thing he said, he should have turned WAAAGH turn 2, not turn 3. So in this case, when it's a World Eaters matchup and you need to have also the defensive buffs, push them off that mid-table line when you're playing a Green Tide, I understand why he was saying that. And that's why he said he was a little too cautious. Of course, it makes sense if you're cautious, considering that World Eaters are some of the few melee profiles that can clear a lot of 20-man units of boys if they have the right setups and roll the right dice. He said knowing the rules better, now that he's familiar, he feels like he can edge this matchup out. And the opponents letting him, knowing his role and him not knowing there was also a different difficulty that he had to overcome. So if you don't have that difficulty, of course, you'll still feel strong in this matchup. And don't let him castle up is what he was saying as well. But I don't have a picture. But we all know purge the foe, right? World Eaters actually for sure kill everything they want. Orcs, it's like kind of sometimes. So no shame there. It happens, and it was a great score, 83. Losing a game with an 86 point, loss is still respectable. So we move on to his third game, where he makes his comeback. So he has Adeptus Mechanicus, the Halo Creed Battleclade. So he has Battle Size Call, Tech Priest Manipulus, Techno Archaeologist, 2 units of Rangers, followed by 1 unit of Vanguard. Yeah. A Scorpius Dune Rider, some 10-man units of Electro Priest, double individual Las Cannon Chickens, 1 Onager Doom Crawler, double units of these battle clade servitors, which are excellent little trash units in my opinion. Excellent, almost give Grotz a run for their money for how interesting they are. Almost. Then we have Sicarian infiltrators, 2 5-man units of that, followed by a Rust Stalker brick of 10, and then double Scoporus disintegrators with the Cladius Assassin. So he does have notes here, and there are some cool, fun moments, like we mentioned earlier with the boys. Doop, doop, doop. I have him over here, and he does have a picture for this one. Sorry guys, I had to scroll down too excitedly. This was layout 6, search and destroy deployment, hidden supplies. So the mission was mission I. So these are the guys that have the -1 to hit and melee ability, and those Electro Priests are crazy with the buff they can get with sustain and super volume of punches into boys. They are kind of soft because they got 1 wound apiece, but they have crazy volume. Again, he kept the boys in reserve. He was able to hold his natural expansion, corner, and sticky it, which was really nice. As I said, he was doing with the Chuck. He said he was able to deny and flip primary turn 2 and turn 3 and managed to hold on, declare his wall. He said of the call himself, the doom crawlers and the disintegrators were wearing him down, but he was managing to respond by killing his scoring pieces. He said, go and get them, save them with for doing beacon every turn. And then the one thing that he had mentioned other time when I was questioning him about how he felt about the boys was that he said those boys units being able to get out of trucks was a really big deal in this kind of matchup where he was able to tie up uh where he said he was able to I had it written down here, sorry guys. Yeah, he would tie up his electro priest, a chicken walker, call himself and one of their gun platforms because he was doing this, letting the trucks get out, getting the boys get out trucks to cover space and getting skirmish fights. And that's what's actually important. It's good. It was a good call that he understood. He might not be able to reliably kill those big trucks and such. So it's trucks, sorry, those transports. So he would need to go for the trash and scoring because Adeptus Mechanicus kind of plays like a Xenos army where they're trying to swap all their bodies for points also. So let's go ahead and throw this on screen for you gets. All right, you guys can see, right? Live chat can see? Yeah, you guys can see. All right. So as we were saying, oh, was this guard game? What the heck? Was this the wrong one? Hold on, pull this back. He might have sent the pictures out of order and then I clicked the wrong one out of order. Let's see. Oh yeah, it was a wrong one. Sorry, guys. He only had one picture here, so it wasn't as exciting, but still cool. Great job. Still exciting though. We got pictures. So here's layout 6. This is the natural that he's talking about. As you can see, 20-man boys went right there. Touch it. He can grow back guys on there and sticky it. There's Snickross standing out in the open. The Doom crawl. So these Doom crawlers have good volume of shots into boys for the most part. Like it's not amazing, but it's good. It's respectable. Alongside their main weapon. Here's you can see 20-man unit of boys covering the distance here. This one's fanning out over there. And then those guys on their objective. Those are really cool looking little tanks, disintegrators, looking like bugs. And then Colt he probably made his way down to this terrain piece. Boy truck moving over here, surrounded by that. He has tank busters in there. So awesome job by him here. And at least we had one picture there. So let me throw this off screen. All right, cool. And then we move on to his game 4. So then we go into his game 4 here, which was Mission L, Take and Hold, Search and Destroy, Layout 1, which was against Astra Militarum, which you kind of seen with the picture I put up on accident already. So he said he does have a lot of experience in games into this kit and into this list. So keep that in mind. So it's Grizzled Company. We have Cadian Command Squad, followed by a Lord Solar Leontis, who will soon be getting replaced by a Yarick. No, I'm joking. We have a Tempestus Scion Squad with Sly Marbo, a Cadian Shock Troop Squad, just 10-man, a big brick of Death Korgs of Krieg. He had 2 of those. And then 2 Torox Primes, 2 10-man units of Kazarkin, 1 unit of Combat Engineers, 2 Lehman Russ Vanquishers, and 2 Rogel Dorns with 1 5-man unit of Tempestus Scions. So he said, like I said, it was Take and Hold and Search and Destroy layout 1. All right. So he said what his main mission here was to bully him off the mid table because we're looking at it being. Let me see if this is the right one. Let me see if I can pull up the right. If he has a picture for this one before I start trying to pull up the wrong picture. Okay, here it is. So I can't read that and show you that. I'll tell you this. I'll just finish reading the notes. Sorry, guys. Sometimes a little slow. So you said he went for throwing him off the mid table, and he was able to throw some distractions onto his natural. So the distractions are to make sure that he can't focus all his firepower off deleting the 20-man units that are in the middle, or maybe even on his own natural on our Tiger Melt's natural. So you have to go to try to flip the enemies, knowing that they have to prioritize cleaning you off so that they can end up actually scoring. So that's what he means by distraction. Wasn't able to kill his Lord Solar Leontis brick to score Assassinate. He said he thinks that his opponent's target priority could have been a little better as well. So here's the pictures, like I was saying. So here we go. We have layout 1, which I do appreciate for this matchup. The enemy moved up to try to take that up terrain right away with that little scouting Torox. Probably had some Cadians in it, maybe. Who knows? In response, you can see the Mandos there, another little Torox. Like I said, when he told me that this is where the tank busters were actually helpful to kill some of these little units like that, which matters because then you get the charges off on the guys inside. Here's some more pictures. Rogaldorn moved up. 20-man units of boys. Boys taking over, grabbing that terrain while holding on to his own. So you can see he's shuffled from inside this terrain to behind that boy covered distance. You see that? Yeah. Another picture here. Enemy responded to try to flip that objective back. He's just holding tight, getting chipped away at as these units are getting out trying to fight him. Again, more stuff in the middle. Excellent job with that. Truck's moving up now that slowly he's getting killed. The flash gets, tank busters getting out so they can get some shots downfield. That boy unit's suffering out there, but making it. And this is why you need on them boys to keep them Kazrakin off the field. On those Gretchen. Seal, you see this Dorn just they moved up and made the charge on it though. They're like, nah, we're gonna keep trying to hold you. But see, he just tagging, wrapping, getting up the field. This Torox is still existing. Just you can't kill the vehicles, but Tiger understood you got to go for the target scoring unit. You have to target the scoring units, excuse me. And then this little mob makes this last push to try to probably flip that terrain. I mean, to try to flip that enemy's natural expansion. Shout out to that little dice box. I like that. Then so awesome. Those were good pictures. Tiger Mouse was all involved. Probably because he was comfortable with his opponent. He was able to take more pictures. I understand that. But thank you very much. And that was a great win there. Again, 95. Sorry, I should have showed you the score already. So 95-point win there. Last game was an 82-point win. Then we move into his final matchup, which everyone's going to enjoy this. It was against an Orc matchup where we have the War Horde of Josh Mars. So we have good old War Horde versus Green Tide. So we have a Beast Boss with Ed Wampus, Kill Chopper. A Big Mac with Follow Me Lads, Boss Nikra, and then Gaz Gulthraka, followed by triple War Bosses. So he's brought all the heat in this War Horde list. One Snagger Mob, the 20 boys for Gaz, a Battle Wagon. Triple Breaker Boys, a Grot Mandos, a Storm Boy unit, one truck, and 2 War Bikers. So I like his list overall. I personally think he put all of the Breaker Boys and the War Bosses into the Battle Wagon. That way on the go turn, you wall, everybody disembarks at relatively similar positioning with good speed, and their profile is smaller, and they can all hide and be safe. And also, it's just a really super killy brick near Gas, so they're getting the auras and such. Likely what I think. But I like the list. Awesome looking list here. But our boy Tiger Mouse did end up actually getting the win over our fellow Greenskin here. Really, I'm sure he was excited for that. And he has some notes and some pictures. I think he has pictures. Yeah. Okay. I'll show you the pictures after I read a couple of his notes. But he said this was Mission G, Purge the Foe, Hammer Anvil, War Horde. So you had to do Purge twice at this event? That sucks. War Horde into Josh. And Josh is a top 10 Orc player in the world. Josh happens to go first. And his list is very hard in the killing Tans and Knights. As we can see based off what we looked at. He said our boy Tiger, kept 1 unit of Grots and boys in reserve. One of the bricks of boys with the War Boss in reserve. He said Josh got unlucky with his secondaries and didn't get good purge points round 1. He only got 1. He said he ended up also calling a wall first. So Josh called the wall first. He forced emergency disembarks. The breakers one-shot the trucks, obviously. And he said the gits in the yellow trucks were able to pepper some shots into gas bricks. He said my tank busters and tank busters himself, their bomb squigs, nades, and everything else he could do, just chip damage, took out the wagon. He said that what happened was because his transport had gotten blown up and the flash kits had gotten out, and they were just standing in place, that he was able to use the 5-man units of flash kits to stand still, which means they get heavy. So now they're hitting on 4s, and then he was able to shoot the breaker boys. Ooh. So yeah, he said the difference was if he would have actually done a different activation on Breaker Boys, when he would have popped the trucks, he could have consolidated or pile in to get into the flash kits, but he didn't do the right sequence correctly. So then he was able to stand in place. He said after that response, Gaz was able to crash into the bottom of no man's land, and then he brought in his reserves. So Tiger then brought in that 20-man unit of mob of boys and the war boss on that same flank. He said the opponent didn't fight on death with Gaz, but he thinks that he should have. But after the boys cleaned up Gaz, he ran out of steam and his assets. So Gaz ran into Tiger because Tiger doesn't have his own Gaz on this list. Tiger responds with bringing his reserve guys in, crashing into the Gaz boys unit, and then the boys all unitedly just blend down Gaz eventually. Once Gaz is blended out, they run out of steam just like any other orc matchup. Another thing that he told me when I did question him a little bit more was, well, in the boys getting out did end up creating more space as well for him to breathe when it was that actual go turn. So when the go turn was on Josh and declared the wall into Tiger, with Stefan Tiger, he would had created a wall with the boys from them getting out of the trucks. So he said that was very, very important, and that made a big deal to allow him to breathe during that big wall push that allowed him to have enough steam to respond with the wall, kill him, and end up still keeping the lead and retaining the lead in the end. So the awesome, great job there. Because if you let a war horde hit you, even if it's not optimized for that, they can still do some serious damage. Now here is the pictures. I think he was only a 2. But as he mentioned, here is the battle wagon with all the breaker boys in it. Here's Gaz. There's a truck just staged up there. It's a really good list overall by him. And then he still had the biker units. So the bikers are great skirmishers. Too bad they're also only strength 4 though. So when they do go into those 10-man units of boys or even some commandos, there's a chance that they don't really kill that many and just start standing there and become leapfrogs. So other orc green tide mobs can charge them. And then here's some little mandos he used to create some space. So yeah, awesome. This is a fantastic list. Josh's list looks awesome as a yellow orc list, but then he also has his own yellow gets on his side for Tiger. So I bet you that was a very fun game from what I could tell it was, and he enjoyed it very much. And shout out to this Git for getting, yeah. So here we go. Sorry, I was like, what am I not erasing that? For getting an 86-point win there and ending up in 3rd place against some real good fellow green skin competition. And shout out to his unique green tide. So this was Boss Snickrot, Pain Boy with Bloodthirsty Belligerents, a War Boss with Ferocious Show Off, a War Boss with no enhancements, and then a Weird Boy. 2 20-man units of boys, 3 10-man units of boys, 2 trucks, 2 flash kits, 2 Gretchen, 1 Mandos, and then 2 tank buster units. One thing Tiger did say that he did like the boy units, but he might end up dropping one of the 10-man units of boys. Maybe not. And he said he might want some Zod Grot, Wartsnagger Grots implemented in this list. I'm totally in favor of that, and I'm here for it. Also, last but certainly not least, he had actually won a competition for his Mando, and this was the same Mando that I think he did good on a paint competition in, or I've seen him in it. So awesome. Great job. Sounds like an excellent time, and thank you to the chat. So let's see what chat has come up with now that it's over. Now that we can actually see what chat came up with. Oops, I went too far ahead. For the honorable mentions. He said playing conservative into Gorchak would be devastating. Yeah, he didn't know that either, right? And he didn't know that going into it when you've never played into something, right? Anything new about Big Hunt meta position? I mean, it seems like slightly worse, I guess. Doesn't really have a position meta generally, to be honest. Maybe like a teams event at best. I'm not sure. Most people I know that even that like the hunt's kind of starting to give up on it. It's a little. We'll see next edition. How about that, right? So, oh, look at the chat. So after the live chat, I wasn't sure, but it looks like the live chat wants me to talk about Derek's Cult of Speed list. Very surprising there. So let me pull that up. It actually has the most votes by far, with 55% of the votes. I honestly, chat, you did surprise me, because I thought you guys were for sure going to pick the War Horde list because he actually won the event. And yeah, this was Battles to End Alzheimer's. I really thought Chow would be like, yeah, I'll go watch it on Derek's channel. But maybe it's like a good teaser for you, right? You go here. If it sounds good enough and you want to hear more about his run, then you can go check out his full deep breakdown, which I'm sure he'll do. And he does them well from what I've seen. So let's go here. Okay, I found it. I got it, you gits. All right. I'm cleaning up a little bit. I had too many things open. You have too many things open, right? He said, "Nah, we want to know what WAAAGH is going to do." Yeah. Oh well, there was 2 Cult of Speed lists, so it still was surprising. But what WAAAGH is going to do? Well, WAAAGH is about to be taking some people's spots on the list, depending on his point cost. He's going to be great. I'm very excited for him. So let's look at Derek's right here. I want to show you people. Nah, we want to know what WAAAGH are going into. And also, I like that picture. That's a crazy ass picture. All right, so let's go over our favorite new green skin, Derek from 40K Dirtbags. So you went to Battles and Alzheimer's legendary event out here in America, 98 player event. So awesome. Boop. Let's go over. I actually haven't talked to him too much since the event. I did a little bit because he told me how it was going. So we'll look at his list. I'll give a little bit of commentary about his list. And then we'll look at his matchups, and it'll be a good time. And then I'll let him know, I'm checking to see if he did take about any more notes about it. But yeah, seems like we kind of agree on what we were talking about. All right. So let's go into his matchups. I mean, his list. Sorry, I said matchup. So we have Kult of Speed. He says 1 speed, gas. We have Vosnikra, a Death Killer Wartrike with Blaz. WAAAGH Blaster. A Gazgul Traka, a Pain Boy, and a Zagrat Wartsnaga with 20 boys. We have 3 bricks of Death Copters, 1 unit of 5 Flash Kits, 1 big brick of Gretchen, a small unit of Gretchen, 1 Commando, a Shock Jump Dragster, triple War Bikers. Boom, nice and neat. Now, first thing people will automatically were saying to me is, he has boys in gas, and they're not fast. Even if you paint them red, they're not that much faster. Why would they be on the list? Now, me and him did speak about this back and forth, even before we fully did the interview thing, about how this kind of functions in the detachment as weaknesses. As we know, if you've been watching, is Cult of Speed struggles with damage big time. And that's really its greatest weakness. And once your opponents, if they have either seen Cult of Speed before or very familiar with orcs to some degree, they'll know that, like, if they have the right tools, they might just stat check you and kind of try to bully you in that mid table, knowing that all you can do is kind of run into them and not reliably kill them. So Gaz 1 helps for the killing. 2, he brings a ton of OC that's still being added on to all the Biker OC, the Death Copt OC, and the Zagrat Brick OC. So Gaz doesn't need to be fast. He just needs to be activated on the go turn when the enemy comes to play the mid table and tries to get involved in the game, while the buggies and the Coptas are moving around on the flanks, right? So just like we spoke about before when we talked about Cult of Speed in the other videos, which you can check them out to play Cult of Speed, still plays the same as a year ago. Just the meta has changed a little bit, and now we have a little bit better tools, and the meta's a little bit more familiar with them if you have these kind of units, right? But the Bikers play the flanks, Coptas generally behind them. Generally, ones in deep strike is what I would always advise. And then Zod staged up as well. When the go turn is there, then you have boys run to the middle. The enemy can try to get on. Zod can end up trying to get on the enemy's home objective. So either you're pulling the WAAAGH turn when Gaz gets a great target, or if Zod has a great way to get to the enemy's home objective. Bikers are going to be acting as, skirmishers, move blockers, objective flippers. Like I said, they have good reactive moves. They can't get a 4-up invuln, so that's where the Def Coptas are really there. When it's about turn 3 or whatever, there's a chance that they can be their 4-up invulns if they start getting shot at. It's really, really hard to actually chew through this fast enough without it scoring all the secondaries at once, because you still have boss Snickrot on the field. So everything else is running on the field, and then Snickrot's either infiltrating in nice spots, or he's screening and then moving, being picked up, and then put somewhere to put a secondary down on field. So the list is just giving your enemy so much to deal with, right? If they full commit to kill out the bikers, that the bikers are running around kind of causing turmoil, then if they full commit there, then Gaz and Zod can make full contact on them. And then once that started happening, you still have the bikers running, the Coptas running around, still shooting ideal infantry targets, flying over, doing mortals, trying to put their OCN objectives. It's actually kind of sick. So this list is a lot of high pressure. I bet you when he does his breakdowns, he'll show you exactly where he placed them. You still have a Shockdom Dragster on the field as well, who's again scoring or denying reserves, right? That's one thing people always forget. There's a chance that you can just use the Dragster to just move and get in the way of the enemy's favorite positioning, staging position. So yeah, this list totally was making sense. The other alternative he had mentioned to me a while back was, I'll use maybe Mega Knobs and or some variation of other elite infantry unit. If you're considering that, my advice to you as well is just go full in on the killing of Gaz personally, right? Where we're at in the meta and what we need is Gaz for dealing with those problematic units. Other orc units aren't worth it, and the points cost difference isn't going to give you necessarily too much of anything else you'd want on your Cult of Speed. Now, if you're playing WTC or something, maybe you would want, you guys could argue you need smaller profiles and more shooting. There was a Cult of Speed list up for the vote, and I think they're playing WTC. So maybe we can see him rewatch King. I don't know. But Derek did a great job with what he had. Great scores, as you can see. He got second place, even with that draw there, into a Death Watch. Mark Hurdle, who's another excellent player. So fantastic job. I was very excited for him, very happy for him. And I'm sure he's going to continue to do well. It's nice to see him doing well with not a horde too, right? I guess it kind of is a horde of bikers. So let's look at his mid list. We have the Necrons, the Cursed Legion, triple Catans, Geomancer. I actually don't know. Is that just the little turd? I don't know what that is. Hexmark Destroyer, Necrosaur, Overlord, Scorpack Destroyer. So 5 flayed ones, Locust Destroyers, 10 Lynch Guard, some Ophidian Destroyers, and some Scorpacks. So this is straight, can you kill me? I got a bunch of this stuff. Put these big characters forward. Catans land on the list. And then a Lich Guard break is kind of tough, in some cases. And this is where I'm saying you want your Gaz. Now, keep in mind, Gaz also is giving your lethal auras to all the bikers if the bikers start to get in a fight, and to Zod's unit as well. So typically your stupid Catans are like invulnerable to some of these things, but there are enough chip damage that you can chip down some of these Catans if you had to, but Gaz can try to play out one as well. Nonetheless, it really comes down to 1, board control, and 2, a ton of OC on this list, as well as you can hunt down these scoring kind of targets that he has with all of your units when he and stop his secondary scoring as well. So you can lock down his primary and you can lock down his secondary, is what I'm thinking here. He doesn't have any like really great Overwatch targets or things that are going to be able to by volume shoot out his bikers, so you can be kind of aggressive with them, and his Coptas, right? There's no the Silent King. Ever since they did the nerf to that, there's no big break of destroyers to Overwatch or anything to that degree. So great job, and I'm sure that was just quite brutal. Yep, it was 97-point win there. Fantastic. Then we move into his second game, where he goes into the Aeldari. Oh my gosh, poor Eldar. I've played this. You've seen on my battle report, played Cult of Speed into Eldar. It is horrific. So we have Baroth, Genzar, Slilax, Prince Uriel. We have some double triple Corsair Void Reavers, but one is a 10-man unit, followed by Corsair Sky Reavers, 3 minimum size units there, double Fire Prisms, a Howling Banshee 5-man unit, and then double Shroud Runners and a Striking Scorpion with a brick of Swooping Hawks, a War Walker, and a 5-man unit of Warp Spiders. This is a really nasty situation for the Eldar, like in my battle report, where you get infiltration, but then you also have very fast units like the auto advanced moving bikers with the trike. I mean, even their Overwatch is disgusting against Eldar because the biker will get automatically hitting on his flamer. It will be -2 AP on top of all of the volume of possibly 5 shots, twin link, strength 5, 1 AP shots from them as well. So they're not even safely approachable for like 5-man units. Then they also don't have great profiles for killing bikers or Koptas because they have their T6 and 4-up armor save. So this list does have a bit more weapons, I guess, than some of the other Eldar lists, but you still have all of Zod to cover the distance and smash into them, and Gaz with the boys. So that's for sure 100-point win. Disgusting. That would be a brutal. Oh, I feel bad almost. Well, I don't know. I don't know if Derek feels. Derek, now you let me know if you feel bad. You might just be crumping that good happily along there. Then we go again with his third matchup with the World Eaters. We have Demon Prince of Khorne, Karn, Lord Invocatus, Lord on Juggernaut, and Slaughterbound. So this is a matchup you do have to be cautious about when you're first going into, right? I'm sure Derek's very familiar, so he's awesome, straight up old school warband. But I will say, when I was figuring out Cult of Speed, this was one of the matchups that actually crumped me because they were able to get the initiative on me, stuff me in my zone, me have to really try to kill them on their terms was a big no factor. So this isn't an easy matchup. We have 2 big breaks of Khorne Zerkers, followed by 8-bound, another Exalted 8-bound, a Hellbrute, triple Jackals, and that's it. So these big bricks of 20 dudes are really, really point consumptive. So the list I was talking about is a little harder, a little more 8-bound. A little more 8-bound centric. But this does still pose some issues, like Hellbrutes, for example, can shoot through all the bikers, and if you're too condensed, they can get through more of them. But if there's one thing that me and Derek agree on that I told him you can and you should shoot your bikers into, are anything with Blast 2 that you can get close enough to do sustain. So if you get 6 Koptas here to get Blast 3, you're on these Khorne Zerkers with sustain 2, that would be fantastic. Now, can they like possibly Blizzard you and do all that stuff? Yeah, I know. But remember, you still got Gaz and other cool units on the list that can actually countercharge that you didn't typically always have. So I would like to hear more about how he handled this matchup and what the list were. The mission was for fun, but he does have a lot of really strong tools for that list. Great job there, 100-point list. That's what we want to see, right? When you got the advantage, just twist it all the way and get that 100. That's really where you can't feel bad, because if you lay off, you might not get that 100, right? And Derek's playing for all the hundreds, so no mercy. So round 4, we go into the Tyranids, and they're playing the Subterranean Assault. Well, you know what would suck for you is if like you just don't get to use your detachment rule other than on my terms over there somewhere. So really nasty screening potential with Cult of Speed into this, right? So we have Hyperadaptive Raveners, 2 of those units, a Swarm Lord and a Trigon, followed by a Tyranid Primes with Lashing Lips, 2 of them, double Hormagaunts, a Biovort, a Lictor, a Neurolictor, double Raveners, triple Tyrannoflexes with Rupture Cannons. So this is like anti-Catan, which means they have almost no good targets in this detachment. You're like, well, oh, you want to shoot my bikers? Okay, cool. Like, cool, bro. Like, so they did a little bit of small like Stinger Sommels, but I think those are only strength 5. So yeah, he can get out and do cool tricks and hit really hard with these Raveners being led by leaders, but again, it's going to mostly be on Derek's turn. I bet you it was nasty. Yeah, 97-point win. So, when you have, like I said, the Dragsta that can move, take up a spot, bikers, stick route. this dude had 5-man flash gets on the list. He had Mandos, everything. So much stuff, right? We were looking at how much stuff he had on the list for Derek's list. Yeah, Snickrod, Trike that's fast enough to move, Zagrod. It's just the 5 random flash gets Mandos, right? So much stuff that can be used to. Oh, I'm just not going to let you be down where you want, and then I will annihilate you. Tyranids are not that tough. Hormagaunts, right, getting ran over by Koptas or Bikers, small arms fire. Lictors typically are safe, but Cult of Speed is fast enough to close that distance, and some of the units are tough enough that they're like, sure, you'll fight me first, and then I'll kill you after. So that's awesome to see. And then Tyrannoflex, you're just like, I don't care about you, and Gaz will get to you eventually because you're not going to do shit about it. Cool. That's fantastic. I'd love to hear what Derek says about exactly how he abused that guy, I guess. Then we go into his. Now, this was his draw into Mark Hurdle, which is, I think, one of those only people that makes. I think that's what chat's saying right now. Mark Hurdle is like the top Death Watch player. Okay. So his name wasn't. Okay. So he's absolutely awesome. I don't know if he was just a generally great guy player or just, I guess he's one of the Death Watch guys. Fantastic. So Death Watch Space Marines, one of those really niche detachments at list that you would walk into and be like, oh shit, if you don't know what's going on here, this would be very punishing. So this is one of those I really might watch this breakdown because I haven't even got a chance to play into one of these elite exceptional Death Watch lists. So we have Captain and Gravis armor with Thief of Secrets, Judiciar, Lieutenant, Watchmaster. We have one big brick of Death Watch veterans, a small 2 5-man units of Death Watch veterans. They still get Thunderhammers though, and the Xenos blades and the shields and a frag cannon. Awesome. All for 100 points. That's sick. We have an Intercessor squad, a Rhino, a 5-man unit of Death Watch Terminator squad. Again, these guys are sick because they get triple. For 5 dudes, they get 3 of them with the Cyclone launchers. That's badass. We have another unit of Terminators for the same thing. Then 2 Indomitor teams and a Thormspeeder Thunderstrike. So a lot of special weapons on this. I actually used to own a Death Watch army, and it was a lot to remember, so I just stopped owning it. But this, I'll definitely leave it more to when we watch exactly what he did into this matchup because I want to know what the mission was too to know how he got to that draw secondary. But what I do know is Death Watch is highly damaging, really good into Xenos. Their whole thing is when I come down, I can do damage to you, and then I'm kind of slow. So I'm wondering if it was a case of when they came down, they did enough damage that, and he was still far enough that the damaging units like only Gaz, for example, can respond to these kind of bricks. Did he just get to still kind of run a little spot of the field after and not kill any of them fast enough? I mean, he probably killed some. I'm not saying none, but some, right? Like I'm sure he killed all these battle line, but these 5-man units of Death Watch Terminators and one of these squads left would still be devastating to whatever was existing because they're combined. They're shooting, they're fighting. It's kind of what tough makes weapons so they can kill multiple units. So this would be sick. Let me know what happened there, Mr. Dirtbag, because I'm excited for that matchup more than all the other ones, which makes sense. It was a draw, but great work there. And then we go, and then his last game was TJ Lanigan. Look at this run my boy was on. That's what I'm talking about. Putting some respect on them Orcs name out there, dude. These people are like, well, I have my awesome 1,000 Suns. And then you're like, I got the greenskins. So awesome. That's what I love it. So he's playing 1,000 Suns Grand Coven. TJ is a fantastic world-class player, which means this would be a devastating list if you are matchup if you weren't playing something that's very fast. So we have 2 exalted dorks on disc. No, I'm joking. Exalted sorcerers on discs of each, 2 of them. An Infernal Master, Magnus the Red, and then triple sorcerers, followed by 4 5-man units of rubrics. Let me see. Yeah, they're using their flamers, right? Yeah, okay. 1 Chaos Rhino, double 2-man unit of Chaos Spawn, triple Zango Enlightened, followed by 2 5-man units of Zangor Enlightened with Fate Caster bows. So the one thing here is that if you are just waiting around for 1,000 Suns to do the basic trade, fair game back and forth. They chip your army apart on their own terms, devastate your best unit, and then just leave you high and dry on the field. In this case, because you have just continuous waves of pressure to kind of control where they end up, choose, kind of get to dictate as well what they get to fight. I'm sure that he was able to Derek was able to kind of find a way to, and these units aren't that tough, right? So orc units can still deal with this. This is where I would like Gaz's Aura 2. Maybe it can play. I don't know. Derek can let us know. But all these little MSU units that you'd want to kill with, you're still not ideally killing units like bikers and such, would appreciate having lethals to try to chew through some of them. And then you still have Magnus the Red running around, so at least Magnus has to respect Gaz. But then again, he's still going to be a problem because you're not going to reliably be able to one-shot him. So I would love to see what that mission was, but 73-point win there for Mr. Derek from 40K Dirtbag. As for how his list would work, if we're really taking a real look, right, just off the top of our heads, if he was to incorporate WAAAGH, I don't think it'd be that hard. Like, I don't know what he loves necessarily from this list, but right off the bat, people are like, well, I would already consider Boss Nick round because he's a lone op. That frees up 75 points. You consider the 5-man unit of Flash gets, boom, free off another 80 points. And then we don't know exactly how much he'll cost, so you could free up Waz Blasta for 10 more points, and then kind of from there, finagle if you do something else, right? But that's fantastic. You could definitely just fit WAAAGH right into this list, and now there's something else that can go out other than Gaz to getting stuck in fights. You could get rid of Zod if you really wanted to. I love Zod and my Cult of Speed even, but you guys know I'm biased to Zod. That being said, shout out to Derek 40K Dirtbag. Hopefully shouts out the wall after as well, so that we can all have a good time getting stuck in. He can let us know how he did with those matchups I was more curious about. Just like you guys let us know and get stuck in with that paint competition, and check out our affiliate links so the Great Wall can keep growing for anything you do on Amazon. So that being said, what's going on? You get to the chat. Hope you guys appreciated that. Yeah, there's a lot of good lists this week and last week from the honorable mentions. So if you're rewatch gang or anybody there, make sure you go check that out. If you like the new start times, because I've been starting them almost an hour, almost 2 hours earlier, trying to figure out what's a better start time for all the live viewers, let me know. So far, it hasn't really been working out, but maybe it's my inconsistent start time. I don't know. So that being said, leave a like. Let me know how we're doing. And there's only one thing to keep in mind. You don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.